Ever get that feeling? Like, someone's out there kind of pulling the strings, shaping the world in a way we don't even realize?
Interesting.
Well, that's what we're diving into today.
Oh, okay.
This group, the Atlas Network, they've been doing just that. All about free markets, but get this.
Yeah.
The whole thing started on a chicken farm.
A chicken farm.
Right.
That's not what I would have guessed. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing when you think about it. How an idea, especially about something as complex as economics, can spread and actually influence global policy. And that's what we're talking about here, right?
Exactly. Think tanks.
Yeah.
Those policy wonks you always hear about. But these guys are all connected, all working towards a common goal.
A global network.
Right. And our source, this paper by Marie-Laure Salles-Djelic, it paints a really vivid picture. We're talking 1950s Britain, post-war, everyone's all about, big government.
Yeah, government intervention in the economy was kind of the norm back then.
Exactly. And that's where our chicken farmer comes in, Anthony Fisher. Stumbles upon this book, completely changes his outlook.
Let me guess. Road to Serfdom.
Bingo, Hayek. Not exactly a beach read,
But for Fisher, it was like a lightning bolt.
yeah. And he actually goes and meets Hayek. Can you imagine?
And what did the great Hayek have to say?
Well, Hayek basically told him, if you want to change the world, you got to start with the intellectuals, the journalists, the academics, all those folks.
The influencers.
Exactly. He called them secondhand dealers in ideas. Said they were the key to any real lasting change.
Because they shape public opinion.
Yeah. And eventually, the politicians, they come around too.
Interesting. So it's not about protests or movements. It's more
Targeted, top down.
subtle.
And that's where the chicken farm fortune comes in handy.
So he put his money where his mouth was? What did he do?
Founds the Institute of Economic Affairs, IEA, London, 1955.
With the goal of
Promoting free market ideas, publishing papers, organizing events, trying to make free markets the new cool thing for the thinking crowd.
ambitious, considering the climate at the time. They were up against a lot, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. The article, it actually describes them as a scorned, dismissed, heretical minority at first.
Wow. So how did they go from that to, well, being influential?
Well, this is where things get really interesting, because remember Margaret Thatcher?
The Iron Lady, how could I forget?
Well, she actually gave the IEA props for laying the groundwork for, her whole economic policy.
Oh, kidding.
Yeah. Even appointed their director to the House of Lords. Talk about influence, right?
That's wild. Proof that Hayek was onto something, changed the minds of the elite.
And the whole system can shift.
Exactly. But Fisher, he didn't stop there. He had even bigger plans.
Oh, I bet. What was next on the agenda? Global domination.
Basically, he wanted to get this, litter the world with these free market think tanks.
Litter the world.
Yeah.
Ambitious. So is that how the Atlas Network is born?
That's it, 1981. And they were smart about it, really strategic, had this two-pronged approach.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
So first, they'd find these promising think tanks all around the world,
Yeah.
and they'd give them seed funding, like an angel investor, but for ideas.
Interesting. So not just a blank check, though, right?
Oh, no. There was a lot more to it. They also gave them guidance, strategy, drawing on what the IEA had learned.
So almost like a franchise model,
Yeah,
but for, spreading the gospel of free markets.
kind of. But yeah, they wanted to make sure these groups could actually succeed, make a real impact in their own countries.
Because it wasn't just a Western thing, right? This was...
Oh, global from the get-go. The article mentioned groups popping up everywhere. France, Iceland, Peru, even Australia.
Wow. Okay, so how do you even begin to spread these free market ideas in places that are, totally different from London or whatever?
Well, take Peru, right? Super interesting case. They backed this economist, Hernando de Soto. And this was during the Shining Path thing. A lot of chaos. Socialist ideas were gaining traction. De Soto's group, though, they offered a different way.
Instead of
state control or violent revolution, it was risky, but
it resonated.
yeah, people were looking for another option, and he provided it.
Powerful stuff. So we've got all these different groups all over the world. How do you make sure everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet, ideologically speaking?
That's where their role as a network is essential. They weren't just funding individual players.
More like...
They were creating an orchestra, making sure everyone had the same sheet music.
Okay, I like that. But how do you conduct this orchestra of ideas? How do you make sure everyone's on the same page?
Well, for one, they had connections to the Mont Pelerin Society. Yeah. The big leagues. Founded by Hayek himself. So these up-and-coming thinkers, they get an invite to this exclusive club. It's huge.
Talk about an intellectual seal of approval.
Yeah.
But it's not just about networking, right? They had to make sure everyone was speaking the same language ideologically.
Right. And for that, they made sure these think tanks had access to all the key works. Hayek, Friedman, the whole gang.
Spreading the good word, one book at a time.
Exactly. They wanted to create this shared intellectual foundation for everyone in the network.
So you've got the networking events, the must-read books. It's almost like they were creating like a global brand for free market think tanks.
That's a great way to put it. A sense of shared purpose, a movement bigger than any one person or group. And it worked. By the mid-'80s, they helped establish dozens of these think tanks all over the globe.
All pushing for.
Free markets, limited government, the whole 9 yards. Which is where our source leaves off, actually. Mid-1980s. Makes you wonder.
Makes you wonder, where did it all go from there? We're talking about free market ideas gaining some serious momentum globally.
And that's the thing, isn't it? This isn't just ancient history.
Right.
This network, it gives us this like almost a blueprint for how these ideas, they don't just appear out of nowhere.
It takes work and planning.
Absolutely. You need a vision, sure, but you need the strategy to back it up.
Like the IEA, right?
Right.
Years of, what was it, scorned and dismissed before.
They found their footing.
It's a long game. Shift in the narrative, it takes time.
No quick wins when it comes to changing minds.
Exactly. So it's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's more
It's
about...
the right message.
Yeah.
At the right time.
And the right messengers. You got to have that infrastructure. That's what makes this Atlas network so fascinating. Still relevant, even today.
Oh, for sure. Think about it. We are just bombarded with information
Yeah,
constantly.
24/7 news cycle,
Yep.
social media.
Exactly. And everyone wants a piece of your attention. So the question becomes, who's doing the shaping? Who's funding the research, the media? Who's backing the think tanks?
You think of that quote, maybe you know it. It's ideas, not vested interest, that are dangerous for good or evil. Something like that.
Keynes. And he had a point.
It's all connected.
Ideas don't just exist in a vacuum. There's always a context. Someone's funding it. There are networks promoting it. Always.
So what are we supposed to do with all this as, engaged citizens, consumers of information?
Think critically. Don't just accept things at face value, no matter how convincing they sound.
Do your homework.
Right. Who's behind this idea? What are they hoping to gain? Is there another side to this story?
Be curious.
Yeah.
Be skeptical.
Exactly. We're all part of this ongoing conversation, this battle of ideas, even if we don't realize it.
So the next time you hear some policy proposal, some big new idea, really persuasive argument,
Right.
take a second, ask yourself, who might be whispering in their ear? Could be enlightening.
You never know what you might find.